This is part one of a recent keynote speech that I gave to senior managers of a global industrial company. The topic aimed to address the challenges commercializing bold, innovative growth opportunities. This is part one from that keynote. I characterize the economic and business climate we live in today as hyperdynamic. You can no longer count on the global economy for your company's growth. Growth is increasingly zero-sum, competitive advantage transient, disruption everywhere, technology, regulatory, societal, market trends. We all want to become more accomplished. We all want to have our people become more accomplished, to execute big, and to make the big even bigger. We have this growth gap as executives, and we can no longer close the growth gap by defending the core. We have to learn to outcompete. We have to learn to extend the core into entirely new marketplaces and application areas. To get the biggest area of growth, we actually have to have our companies enter into new opportunity arenas. And I call outcompete, extend, and the new arenas breakaway growth because they have the potential of truly moving the dial. We've had a lot of smart people in a lot of very accomplished companies attempting breakaway growth. But there isn't a great track record. Most organic growth continues to be incremental. New opportunity arenas are acquired through acquisition. People's intention is to be able to grow organically. So why is this so problematic? We have the 17th century sculptor, Rodin. But if he lived in the 21st century, he probably would have sculpted something like this. And so I'd like you to follow a line of reasoning along with me. Let's start with what the execution pain points are. At the P&L level, general managers and C-suite, what they are seeing are missed opportunities for growth. Oftentimes that's characterized as the competition got there first, or a startup accomplished it. Why, with our advantages, couldn't we do that? There are failed expectations. Rarely do new areas of growth achieve the forecasts that were used to justify that area in the business case. And executives want their people to be taking more risk, yet they see a culture characterized by an avoidance of risk. At the functional level, in the middle of the organization, people characterize it as, we have incomplete information. We don't know what the product requirements are going to be fully. And yet we're asked to define that up front. We're asked to specify revenue streams with a high degree of accuracy before we ever got into the market. Our processes seem to force upon us a rigidity when what we need is flexibility. And when we look across different functional areas, our priorities are not the same. And finally, at the front line, people experience bottlenecks, delays, rework, wasted time, and they see lots of conflicting signals. So when I ask people, how do you feel about this? The answer comes back quite typically frustrated, or some version of frustrated, angry, upset, annoyed, discouraged, disheartened. And that's the environment inside of many companies as they go after breakaway growth. We've put in place these various processes, and these processes are best practices, and they're designed to actually facilitate going after new areas of growth. Yet, these processes seem to be slowing things down. They seem to be driving growth, to be increasingly incrementalized. They're avoiding risk. They're making things worse. That's what I hear oftentimes, that the processes are causing us pain. And so when I see a lot of very smart people struggle with trying to accomplish something, there's an elephant in the room. Perhaps even an invisible elephant. Something is sucking the oxygen out of the room. Something is causing all of our serious efforts to fail or become disappointing. There's a hidden hand at work. If we look, what is it that these fundamental best practice processes require of us? What is it that StageGate and revenue forecasting and budgets and strat plans and ROI require of us in order for those processes to be effective? And what they require is predictability. Yet in today's world, instead of predictability, what we have is uncertainty. In a hyper-dynamic world, this is the fundamental business climate. We have uncertainty in product requirements, in revenue, in interest rates. We have uncertainty in timing. We don't know what the next several quarters are going to be in our core business, and that makes it very, very difficult for us to invest in growing outside the core. In fact, the military has a term for this new environment. It's VUCA. Volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous. The point is, processes that work well under predictability become hindrances under uncertainty. And it gets even worse. Because how do human beings deal with uncertainty? At an emotional level, uncertainty evokes fear, anxiety, worry. At an action level, uncertainty invokes hesitancy, indecision. We have an aversion to loss. And we revert to familiar patterns when, in fact, the unfamiliar is the world. Malcolm Gladwell talked about in the blink of an eye, we can execute, we can take action before we even think about it. And that blink of an eye works well in a world we're familiar with. But it will lead us astray when we're dealing with this new VUCA environment. People feel secure under conditions of predictability and avoid the discomfort of uncertainty. So therefore, we're left with the horns of a dilemma. On the one hand, we want breakaway growth, and many companies are actively pursuing it. And yet, our processes and our human nature are not designed to work well in conditions of uncertainty. So, what can I do? If we can make use of uncertainty, that could be very powerful because the competition is not likely to. Let me say that again. What can I do? Make use of uncertainty because the competition is not likely to. I'll be talking in part 2 about specific ways to make use of uncertainty.